What up, you lab rats? This is episode number 33, and we are taking it back on Throwback Thursday. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the Lab Rat Dailies, the daily show where I come in between the kind of main show between me and Kevin on the Get in the Lab podcast. This is the Get in the Lab podcast's baby, okay? This is the little baby. So we do kind of like shorter segments where we give every day kind of like a theme. Monday was Motivation Monday. Tuesday is Tuesday Tips. Wednesday, again, the main show. Thursday is Throwback Thursday, which is today. Friday is Good Shit Friday. Talk about good shit. Weekends are for tutorials and stuff like that. And Sundays are Cozy Sundays where I read you stuff. All right. I'm going to put the agenda up on the Facebook page so you can kind of get a lay of the land. It's always good to have a lay of the land. But I'm going to put that up later. So be sure to go and visit us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/getinthelabpodcast. All right. So, all right. A couple things for today. Today's Wednesday. No, today's Tuesday, which means we're shooting for tomorrow's show with me and Kevin today. So if you have any questions for us, go ahead and leave that in the comments or wherever, and we will be sure to answer them on the show. Okay. So today's show, I've deemed it the Throwback Thursday show, where we kind of look back into the past and look at some past mistakes and bring some awareness to the past mistakes, because while looking back and living in the past is not something I recommend, but it's always great to know where you come from and to understand your past mistakes, and sometimes to kind of bring them up again in a constructive sense. So my voice is just not here yet. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about a couple of things. One big kind of mistake that I made was naming my, so-called show that I was starting out maybe about 3 years ago, something very, very ambiguous. And another thing would be not networking. So let's kind of break those things down when I first started. When you first start in kind of like the business of internet marketing and blogging and becoming a content creator, okay? The first thing that you're kind of doing is looking for yourself. You're trying to find out kind of who you are as a content creator, and, where do you actually stand between here and here? And when I first started, I was very excited. I was super hyped up. I had just quit my job on a whim, basically. I had no plan. I was just very, very hopeful at that time. And so I started to try to gain ownership of this new kind of thing, which was, working for myself. And part of owning something is like naming something, right? Like when you get a pet, you name it. Or when you start a podcast, you name it. When you start a show, maybe when you start a blog, you give it a name, right? And so naming becomes kind of this very important thing. And at the time, I thought naming my blog or my show or whatever, I named it Bells and Bounty. Now, this is always such a gas to me, because when I think about it, I was like, what was I thinking? I have no idea what I was thinking. I'll tell you what I was thinking, okay? I'll tell you what I was thinking. So I was in the car. I was on my way to tell my boss that this was my last day, and I was super hyped up because I was like, oh my God, I don't have to do this monotonous bureaucratic bullshit anymore. So I came up with this name, Bells and Bounty, because I was thinking that at the time, what I knew at that time was the wedding industry. Okay, so maybe that'll give you some context. So bells, like wedding bells, and bounty, like a bountiful source of information. That's what I was thinking. Okay, and it had this, literary alliteration, the B and the B, and I kind of like that. And I kind of like the sound of it. It rolled off my tongue. But you know what? In the end, it really didn't make sense to a lot of people, especially in the internet marketing world. I mean, maybe that could have made sense on a on a local scale because I could actually sit down with people and have hand-to-hand talks with them and tell them the story behind Bells and Bounty. And you know what? In the beginning, when I was naming stuff, I didn't really tell people why I named it that. You know how sometimes you run into some products and things and you're like, what does that name even mean? And like, it's not even related to like blueberries or whatever. Like, it's something totally not related to what you thought, right? And it's okay, like, it's cool. Like H&M. Like, I have no idea, like, what does H&M stand for? What I really think it was, for clothes or whatever. And but people don't really question it because they told their story better through their marketing, and I didn't really do that in the beginning. So when you're naming stuff, you can really name it however you want. I think the main lesson here to take away was, are you storytelling the right way, and are you marketing that name in the right way? Just know that when you name something off kilter like that your job for marketing and storytelling is going to be that much more difficult depending on the gusto of your capacity to market that name. Okay, so finally, after thinking I was stuck with that name, I changed it to the Love and Entrepreneurship Show, or blog, or whatever I was doing at that point. So that gave me a little bit more understanding, because when you first start out, you have no audience. And when you have no audience, there again lies another obstacle for you to tell your story and to get your content out there. And so having a name that's pretty ambiguous didn't really help. So when I made that switch to Love and Entrepreneurship, it kind of makes sense. Okay, love, okay, cool, okay, entrepreneurship, okay. So maybe it's something about, entrepreneurs in love or something. And so that kind of gives people a little bit more context, and that helped me out a lot more as I started to interview more people. They kind of knew a little bit about what I was doing, and it kind of put me on the map, and I was more memorable because of that name change. And so it wasn't as ambiguous and weird and awkward, so yeah, naming stuff. You can name it whatever you want, really, but it's really in the beginning you want to work to your advantage. Like, why would you want to make things harder for you, right? Like, I wouldn't want to worry about the name too much if it didn't really correlate into my story of why I was actually blogging. And that was kind of a big mistake, because I told you guys I started Bells and Bounty because I thought I wanted to stay within the wedding industry. And the reason why I thought that was because that's what I knew. And so sometimes when we, when we're starting into a new thing, it kind of scares us to go into something totally outside of our comfort zone. So with me, I felt kind of comfortable in the wedding industry, but I wasn't really passionate about it. I knew the wedding industry. I totally know it, but I really am not passionate about it. At that point, I was kind of angry with it because of all the angst and kind of showiness that the kind of wedding industry kind of accumulated throughout the years, and being a photographer and all that stuff. So I wasn't really passionate about it. Now I kind of am because of my position. I'm in a different position now. But before, it wasn't coming from a good place, right? It wasn't coming from a good place. So when you're naming something, make sure that it comes from your heart. Always be creating content with heart, all right? It's just so much better that way. Instead of it being born of something that's not positive, right? All right. So another thing that I wanted to kind of throw back in here into Throwback Thursday is not networking. And you know what? Networking comes on many levels. There's the cocktail speak, which I'm highly still uncomfortable with. I won't do that kind of thing. It's so weird to me. But when you start in internet marketing or creating content, it's extremely helpful for you to ask for help, right? That's the best way of networking, is when you are honest with your strengths and your faults as a content creator in the beginning, and you say, I don't really know anything about creating a podcast. Let me find somebody, build a relationship with them so they can teach me. And that's exactly what someone has been doing with me. Like my friend Raymond, we're supposed to have a little appointment in about 10 minutes, but hopefully I'll finish this recording by then, about him setting up his podcast. And I love that kind of networking smarts that he has, because I didn't have that. And he's like so young. I didn't have that. I felt so kind of self-conscious, shy and afraid of asking people for help in the very beginning. I felt so weird. I felt disempowered. I felt like it was eating away at my pride, and it only showed my weaknesses when I asked for help. And you know what? That was probably the main thing that kept me from accelerating my content creation and finding out who I was as a brand, was not networking. So, the moment that you can network in any field, really, it doesn't matter. The moment that you can kind of build those skills to network, they don't have to be the typical way of networking. They can be, now that we have the internet, it's so much easier to simply tweet at somebody or like their post or something and slowly build a relationship that way if you're shy and introverted like I am. So, yeah, start networking. And if you haven't been networking, and that word is so kind of thrown around, but I want to make that more personal, which is start building relationships, right? Like honest, authentic, genuine relationships. It doesn't matter how many followers you have if you cannot harness the power of an actual genuine relationship or friendship, then those numbers kind of don't mean anything. Okay, so yeah. I think that was today's episode. Nice, short and sweet, Throwback Thursday. I think it's really important to kind of know where you come from. I always kind of think about that time because we live kind of on a mountaintop, and I can see the 91 freeway from our backyard, and it's always freaking packed, like traffic up the wazoo. And whenever I come out there to stretch or whatever and enjoy the sun, I look down there and I go, shit, man, I used to be in that every day and I hated it. And now I'm here and I'm so thankful. And I always want to remember where I came from so that I do not forget or do not take for granted the opportunity that I have now, and to try to make the most of it and to share with other people who are out there. Maybe they were feeling like I did, on the cusp of something, and maybe feeling like I can do so much more. I'm smarter than this job. I'm smarter than my boss. I'm totally limited and, not utilizing my creative skill here. And I know I can do more in my life. I always felt like that when I was working for somebody else. And I didn't know the exact answer of what I would be doing versus that, but like it had to be something else. There had to be some other answer, and that kind of pushed me over the edge to change my life and what I was doing, and effectively led me here talking to you guys. So I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me today and listening. It means a lot to me. Every day I come on the podcast, and sometimes I sit there and I'm like, what the hell should I talk about? Does anybody care? It doesn't matter that 1 to 2,000 people listen to the show. For me, I know that it makes me a better person to simply come on the mic and talk about lessons learned, and to develop my own skills as a podcaster, as a public speaker, as a communicator, as a sharer of good news, and stuff like that. So, all right, good things, guys. Tomorrow is Good Shit Friday. We're going to talk about some hard results that we're getting within our other businesses. I want to share that with you and be, totally transparent on what's working, what's not. And because we are, we're still trying to establish our other businesses. So I want to keep you guys up to date and kind of keep myself accountable so that I continue to hustle on those other fronts too. It's hard to have a lot of balls in the air, but I think with this podcast, it keeps me very, very accountable. All right. So thank you again, guys, for listening, and we will catch you tomorrow on the Lab Rat Dailies on Friday. So good things. Peace out. Take care. Once again, my name is Megan. I'm out.